little puppets like Simon are perhaps the easiest of all the puppets to make. So I'd like to take you through the procedure of making the little puppets like this. First of all, I like to have all my pattern pieces cut out on plastic. It makes it a whole lot easier to be able to trace around your parts. Now, you will have received a pattern with all of this and with the training video. So what you'll need to do is go through and either cut out your pieces of pattern or put them on some fabric so you can cut out the pieces. When it comes to making the mouths for your puppets, I find it's a whole lot easier just to be able to cut out your ice cream container pieces to make your mouths. So out of one ice cream container you can get 3 puppets, out of one lid you can get 2 puppets. And then the extra pieces that you see around the edges we'll use for making eyes, and I'll show you how to make the eyes. You'll have a number of pieces just like this. You can see that's from an ice cream container. It has the vanilla flavored ice cream on the inside. And what I've done is I've taken those half pieces of mouth, I've folded them over, and I've put a piece of gaff tape on there. That gives the stiffening for the hinge of the mouth of the puppet. Gaff tape is best because it's a cloth tape, it'll last a long time. Ice cream containers are best because they'll last a lot longer than cardboard. As you can imagine, cardboard will deteriorate with the perspiration of your hand in the puppet over a period of time. Now, when I'm making puppets, I'm making them in bulk. I have here some spray adhesive, and I'm going to use the spray adhesive to stick the mouths on the fabric. Now we have to do this while it's still tacky, and of course that will stick down nicely. Spray adhesive, of course, works as a contact adhesive, so it has to be on both sides, and once the 2 sides contact each other, adhesion takes place. Now you can use any red fabric for this. What I've used is a crushed velvet to cut out in just a few minutes. Now the reason that I use the glue like this is because when it comes to sewing the rest of the mouth on, it's very difficult to hold that onto there while you're doing the stitching. There's no way you can pin it, of course. So the glue is the easiest way to do it. And you'll notice when I put the fabric tape across there that I actually folded it in half before I brought that around there. The reason is because if you stick the 2 pieces together, as you can imagine, there's no give in the tape and the mouth will spring open and you won't be able to close the mouth properly. So you fold it before you put the fabric on, and then you glue this piece on the inside. Now in the pattern you've got an ear shape which is something like that, and a hand shape something like that. Because I like to make them in a lot more bulk, I've got a piece of plywood and I've cut it out so that I've got 4 hands, 4 ears, and 2 noses on one piece. And I can lay that on my fabric like so, trace around it, and then when I sew my pieces, I sew them in large portions like that, so that I've got a number of hands and ears. Now of course you don't need to do that if you're just making 1 or 2 puppets or a half a dozen puppets, but if you're going to make them in bulk, that's a lot easier to do it. And then you can just stitch around each one of those individual pieces and then cut them out afterwards. But once they're cut out, of course, they all have to be turned inside out, or in this case the right way around, to be used as hands. So I like to use a pair of scissors just to poke them through. You can use anything you like, a knitting needle or whatever, all turned around the right way. Now those are your ears and noses and your hands. Now in order to make the hands look like they have individual fingers, what we want to do is just do a little stitch up each one of those 3 fingers, the bottom of one to the top of the other, so you can clip off the excess, and that of course gives the puppet the look of individual fingers, 1 for each hand. In the patterns that you received, you'll find that there are 3 different types of faces. This is a standard one, and we usually use this for the little boys. We've got the 2 sides of the face. The nose will go in the center and the ears at the edge. This part goes at the back of the hair, and you'll see us sewing that together later. So that's the back of the neck, that part there. And then you have the piece which is the chin. Remains the same on all 3 puppets. However, with the girl, we're going to do 1 continuous head. We're not going to sew the hair into the face. Instead, we're going to put the hair on as a separate wig. And this is how I go about that. Here's a skein of wool. I've made myself a template like this. It's all little jiggly bits at the end, and in the pattern that you've received, you've just got a half of this. So in other words, you would fold that out and recreate it as two separate pieces. The reason I've made it this size is because that is what fits in a standard sewing machine. That will fit in a standard sewing machine, and you can run a stitch up the middle. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap the wool round and round this in order to create a wig. Now you can use any kind of wool you like. You may wish to use a blonde wig if you want a blonde girl. Right, once you've got that all wound round and round there, the next thing is to stitch up the middle. So we'll give this a stitch, feeding the hair through as you go. Then in order to make the wig, you'll just cut this end off. Stitch the nose into the face. Next comes the hair to the back of the neck. And that of course has to go around this curved side, the inside of the neck. So we're going to stitch the back of the head to the inside of the neck. Fur fabric in. If you have it sticking out like this, of course you'll stitch it into the stitching seam. So make sure you fold the fur fabric in. And that puts the back of the neck onto the hair. Next, we want to put the front of the hair onto the face. Of course, you're always working inside out with these, the front side of the fabric to the front side of the face, feeding your fur fabric in underneath the seam. If you have bigger hands like mine, you may want to just add an extra 1/4 of an inch, if you like, to the size of your pattern, so that puts the hair on the face. Now, in order to get your ears in the right place, you want to actually stitch your ears in first. And the way we're going to work it out is so that the hairline comes down to the top of the ears. So we want the hair, that side of the face, to actually have a portion sticking out on the face. So what I'm going to do actually is to sew the ears to the base of the hairline at the back of the head, so that the hair, as you can see, just comes to the bottom of the ear. So I'm going to stitch that in beforehand, because trying to get that in along with the rest of the face is rather difficult. So I'm putting the ears on the hair now. And this of course will come on the inside. And the seam will turn inside out. So what I'm going to do now is stitch the face to the jaw or the chin. The piece where we stitch the mouth in later. Now what we have to do is put the back of the head to the front of the head. Now I find it's easier, you've got your ears already stitched in there, so they're in place, so you can line the top of the front hair up with the top of the ear, and then that will stitch down there. Sometimes you have little bits left over, that doesn't matter. I usually find it's best to stitch up to the top of the head, and then work from the other side and stitch again up to the top of the head. That takes us halfway around. Now I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to work from the other side. So what I'll actually do is turn the whole pattern inside out so you can see it being stitched from the other side. Making sure the ear stays in there. And we have that face stitched to the back of the head all the way around. Now the next part is to put the mouth in the face. And of course we'll want to put the front of the mouth forward into the face like this. One of the reasons for sticking that fabric in there is so that when you put it together you can actually pin between the outside fabric, and that pin is now under between, and I'll pull this apart so you can see, between that fabric and the ice cream container. So you can pin that all the way around in at least 4 places. I make a fair few of them at a time, so I use a bit of a cheats method, and instead of using pins I use staples, and I actually staple it right through, and then I have to remove the staples afterwards of course. So if you've got pins in your sewing kit, it's just as easy to use pins. I find that this just holds it together a bit easier. So I'm going to staple this both sides of the mouth. And I like to do it this way so I can make sure that a little bit of the fabric is sticking out underneath all the way around. It's also a lot easier to hold it flat in your machine. Now, pulling the fabric out as you go to make sure that it's catching it all the way around. It doesn't matter if you get a little fold here or there. Nobody's mouth is the same, and if you get a little bit of a fold, it's just a little dimple in the mouth. Alright, now I'm going to go around that a second time. The reason being that there's a fair bit of pressure put on the mouth as it's pulled, so this is just going to give it a second stitch, so it's double stitched all the way around. You can, if you like, cut off any excess that's around there. Now we have to remove those staples, so I have a special staple remover. Saves my fingernails. Now we'll turn the head right side in, right side out, whatever you call it, in or out. And there we have father's head. I call this a father because of course he's got greying hair.
G'day! I'm Dad. I need some eyes.
This next part is optional. You can go about putting some stiffening in just to give the face a bit more character. You'll notice in the patterns that you have a couple of pieces that are marked for cutting out on foam. Now, just so that you can see what this is, I've marked out a bit of ironing board foam. So that gives you the idea of the thickness. It's 1/4 inch foam, or well, around about 8 or 9 millimeters, I guess. So what we do is mark those pieces out. This is the face piece. I'll just cut one of these out. Scissors cut easily through this. Alternatively, you can use an electric knife to cut foam. And here's how we go about using glue. And I've used an ADOS glue. This one's called a Bostik. You can get it in all different types. What you want to do is glue around the edge with this piece, which is going to be the face, inside of the face. You want to glue both just inside the lip there and the face. That you glue this on the top portion. Don't glue it on his chin underneath. Glue the top portion up here. We can tell this is the top portion because there's the nose and there's the top of the chin. And we just want to glue about 1/4 inch of that in there. Now this is contact adhesive that we're using here. And contact adhesive means that when it touches itself, it actually glues or binds to itself. It vulcanizes is what they use, is the term they use. That means that you have to glue both sides, both edges, as we've done. You have to wait about 5 to 7 minutes until it's dry to the touch. Okay, now comes putting this together. It's now dry to the touch, as you can see, which means that it's ready to go together. It may seem strange that it's dry to the touch, but it sticks. But that's the way ADOS works. That's the way a contact adhesive works. So as you can see, as soon as I push that together, there's no way it's going to come apart. And this, of course, becomes the top of the face, like that. Now, the reason that you have that is so you can stick your fingers in underneath. Now I'm going to stick it to the top of the jaw. That's why we stitched, we glued on the inside of there. Now, just with a bit of pressure, just press it down, and that causes those to stick. And it sticks very well, as long as you leave it to dry. If you do it before it's dry, it won't stick like that. Now, the reason that we've done this is so that when you put your hands in your puppet, you can put your fingers underneath there, and your fingers aren't flopping around in the top of the head. Your fingers are actually held against the top of the jaw, like that. Now we're going to turn this the right side around. Now pushing that foam in around the rest of the face so that it comes out there, you can see the difference that that makes at the front of the face. I might have to straighten that foam out in there a bit. But when that foam pushes up against the front of the face, you can see that it brings the face out nice and round. Oh, where'd he go? Oh, where's my eyes? Oh, we haven't got to your eyes yet. That's still coming. Now the girl's face is a wee bit different, in that we want to have the face and the back of the head all in one piece. We don't want to sew the hair into the face. You can, of course, use long fur fabric to do a girl's hair, but instead we're going to use the wig that we made before. So once again, take the nose, and you may or may not wish to put a bit of stuffing in the nose. In this case I won't, just to show you the difference. And the first thing we want to do is stitch up the face. Once again, about 1 centimetre between the bit that fits against the mouth. Next, we want to sew the chin onto the face before you put the back of the head on. We have to fool around with this sometimes to get the right pieces together. We sew the bottom chin to the face. One side and the other side. So once again we have the chin sewn to the front of the face. Now we need to put the back of the head on to the neck as well. You'll notice that on the girl's head there's a dart that goes in the back. I usually just do it in one piece because it makes it a lot easier to stitch it up. So we'll just run a stitch along there. Cut the excess off if you wish, you don't have to. And the back of the girl's head a bit more shape. Onto the face, meeting at the center. Now this is a lot easier and it's working fine, so I'm going to just carry on right the way around, bring it right to the other end. Now with the girl, it's a bit difficult to figure out on the back of the head whereabouts to put your ears for height. So in order to get her ears in the right place, I'm going to stitch them at the junction of the face and the neck. That's right there. Other ear on the other side. Once again on the lower side of the junction of the neck and the top of the head. Now we're going to sew the face to the back of the head. So we start at the base of the neck, two pieces joining together. Following that right up to the top of the center of the head. Keeping an eye on that mark so that you can follow it all the way around. Once again, polar fleece is fairly forgiving, so it'll stretch and move as you go. Finishing again, of course, at the base of the head. So that's the girl's head, and once again it's all in one piece. So what we want to do now is sew the wig across the top of the head. So here's the wig that we made before, and we're going to stitch that right the way across here. Here's where it's important not to put the mouth in, because that's where you're going to want to put your stitch. Following seam on seam, and you want to make sure that you pull the jaw back out of the way. You also need to feed the hair in so that you keep it fairly well bunched up together. Pushing the hair up in, bunching it up fairly close together. You want to lift your foot up every so often to feed a bit more under. Keep an eye out so that you don't get that chin under there. That way you've got the hair right the way across the top. Then using a little bit of glue, we can glue the hair down around the sides of the girl's hair later. Or you can put it into pigtails or ponytails. Of course, if you want to use a lot longer wool, you can do that too. We've probably got a bit much at the back here. Trim all that so that her hair goes around fairly evenly. Once again, putting the mouth in will be the same way as we put the mouth in for the other one. Pulling that forward, stapling or pinning the mouth on the front, and you can stitch around that mouth again. Now what we need to do is work out grandfather's hair so that it comes all the way around this edge, right the way up to the center and back down there. And just to make sure that I do get him right in the middle, I'm going to put a wee mark in the center of grandfather's head to make sure that that lines up with the seam when we come around. We can always pull this fabric a little bit in or a little bit out to match it up. But it has to match up with the center of his head. Working it around as we go and making sure that comes up to there. Face of grandfather. So once again, be very careful to make sure that you push all the fair fabric in underneath. We want that fur fabric to hang back over the back of his neck later. Make sure that that seam goes right to the center of the hair. That's why I've done it that way, and I'm only going to go that far to make sure that it matches with the other end. So now I'm going to start working from the other side because we want to get that curve all the way around there. Alright, let's start working from the inside of this now. He's a cute little fella, but he takes a little bit more stitching and getting in exactly the right spot than the other one. I've got a bit left over there on the head, that doesn't matter. Trim that off. So when we turn his head inside out, you can see that Grandfather has his hair around both sides, but nothing on the top. Now we need to stitch the ears in. Place the ears right inside of here. Actually stitch that gusset together. The bottom of the neck, the bottom of the chin together. We'll place the ears inside of there. Make sure you get those ears up the right way, of course. You don't want one sticking up and the other hanging down. Now, a little secret, when it comes to putting the dress onto your puppet, this will make things a whole lot easier. It's not necessary, but I would highly recommend it. This is some of that iron-on stiffening material. As you can see, it's got a sticky stuff on there. This can be ironed on, and it gives that extra stiffness to the neck. Now that's going to be important when the time comes for putting it together. So we do it one side and another, and you'll see why it's so important and what that does to help with the stiffening of the collar up around the neck of the puppet. While we're on the ironing, I'm now going to turn this the right way around, and when it comes time to stitch the puppet's hands into the dress, all you're going to do is stitch the puppet's hands directly into the dress. We're not going to make an extra body or anything. The dress literally is the body for these particular puppets. So to make it a little bit easier to do that sewing, you can fold a hem in there. You want to fold about 1 centimeter worth in there. Same both sides, of course, so both arms are the same length. This is the part where we put the dress onto the body. Now what I've done is I've turned the dress back inside out, and I have the face around the right way. So what we need to do is put the face on the inside, pull that back out to there, and we just want to line that up with the edge. Now this is a bit of a tricky bit, but you'll see why it's so important to do it this way. If you have a sewing machine which has got a free arm, it makes things a whole lot easier when it comes to putting this together like this. Now what we want to do is turn the dress and the puppet the right way around. So that we get this looking a bit more natural, we want to put like a bit of a polar neck. So I'm going to fold this all back up here, and that's why that stiffening is so important. You can allow that extra maybe 5 mils of the stitching to keep, or the stiffening, to keep that stiffened up. And I'm going to pull that up higher so that it looks like she's got a bit more of a polar neck. In other words, so that the dress overlaps the head. This is why it's important to have a free arm on your sewing machine, if you can. You also have to be very careful that you don't stitch the arms into the head. So at this point, it's a good idea to make sure that you pull the arms the right way around. We'll place the whole head over the arm, the free arm of the sewing machine, and I'm just going to run one stitch right the way around the neck. I can feel that stiffener running right along there. There we have it. Now the last piece that we need to do is putting the hands inside of there. Thumbs up, of course, to make them look up the right way. Don't put the thumbs down. Hands will be upside down. And all we want to do is run one stitch down. Same again on the other side. Of course, the other hand, same thing again. There she is, completed. Now, she doesn't look very lifelike yet until she gets her eyes on. You can go and buy your eyes from the sewing shops or the hobby shops, but I find that it's much better to make your own eyes. And it's so inexpensive and easy to do it. I think I paid about $8 for that punch. And you can get a whole heap of eyes out of just a few ice cream containers. Now I'm using an old one of these cutting mats, but you can just do it against a piece of wood. Now, these punches are made in such a way that they build up in there. So what you need to do is perhaps get a screwdriver or something, and you can just tap them back out again. Using black gaff tape or electrician's tape, either one, and using just a little hole punch, this will make the pupils for your eyes. The backing that they're on is that greaseproof paper, so that you can peel them off again. And so you've got a whole bunch. Now let's see how we go about putting these together. So we're just going to take one of those pupils and place it on the ice cream container. Stick it down, and there we have an eye. And you can position that pupil anywhere you like on there. We'll do one more because we're going to do the dad puppet here. So I'll put this other eye on here. Now the beauty of these eyes is that to give them a bit of character, you can just cut them off, like so. So I'm going to cut that one off there, and that one off there, and it just kind of puts the eye, the pupil of the eye down on there. Now, if you hold them, put them this way, you've got very angry eyes. If you put them this way, you've got sadder eyes. If you have just straight open eyes, it looks more like a little boy or a little girl, but we'll do that in just a second. Now I want to put this on Dad, because Dad always has his eyes looking a little bit sad. Now, to give the puppet true character, true cartoon character, put the eyes very close together. This is a vitally important part of finishing your puppet off. And those eyes, wide eyes, you just want to leave them like that for a little boy or a little girl. However, in this case, I want to make a little girl. Cut the top of her eye like that. What I'm going to do is take a bit of this black stuff again, peel the backing off of it. And of course you can buy eyelashes in all kinds of different forms and formats. But I'm going to put that on there. We'll cut her some eyelashes. And that gives her little girl eyes. And of course those will need to be glued down. You can bring them right down. It's alright if they're right on the nose, touching the nose. This is all a part of making the caricature. You can make her an angry little girl by putting them down this way. You can make her a cute little girl by putting her this way. And you can do all kinds of different things with the eyes. Grandfather will need totally different eyes because of course his eyes are getting old. He also has some hairy eyebrows. Stuck those down with a bit of spray adhesive. Very simple eyes. We'll half cover the pupils. And as you can see, when you put the eyes on these puppets, that's when they really come to life. So there's Grandfather. Now, also what I want to do is I've got to punch this size, and I've taken some of that black gaff tape, that which is also called duct tape, and I've punched those out of there, and then I've punched a little piece out of the middle, and then cut those down. Now this piece is designed for the inside of the mouth, and I'm going to put that right across the center fold. Now when she opens her mouth, there's that depth there that goes down the back of her throat. Once again, that was made with a large punch, punched again on here, and that's just ordinary gaff tape that's been stuck on a bit of greaseproof paper so that you can peel the backing off.